because of government regulation and intervention. I mean, to me, that we're killing our own industries because we can't get that model right. When the federal government makes a small policy shift, it puts small businesses out of business because they can't comply very easily. Entrepreneurs are barely making it. They don't have time to add more compliance costs. There's something called Sarbanes-Oxley. If you're a small publicly traded company and you were in the public markets, this Sarbanes-Oxley that was heaped upon them shut them out of business completely. It added anywhere from $500,000 to $750,000 of compliance costs for these little publicly traded companies. And they said, look, we can't be public anymore, we can't survive. And that's government policy at work. So we have to have a really competitive environment. There are jobs that we're not going to get back. We've lost them. We don't have the competitive advantage. We're not going to make shirts very well in this country ever again. What we have to do well is new technologies, new innovations. Make sure we have a system that rewards people that take risks and doesn't cut their feet out from under them because of the high taxation or high regulatory environment. So I think that's what's made this country great, is new technologies, new innovations, new patents. We continue to gel in that, and we've got to do that as well as we possibly can do that. An entrepreneur who struggles for a couple of years and finally has a great year, and if you average it out, it's just good on average, but when he has a great year, the government takes 45% of that. I mean, it's a terrible system in terms of the way it's implemented. So I think you have to get back to doing what we do best. China, India, they want our jobs. They want white-collar jobs. They want our blue-collar jobs. They want everything they can get for us. And it's our responsibility to be more efficient as a nation and as an economy. So that's what I would fight for as your senator. Yes.
So I think most of us probably voted for Bush and McCain because the alternatives were
Obama
hideous.
and Al
Yeah,
Gore,
Gore or Kerry. But I don't think most of us were probably real pleased with a lot of things. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't pleased with a lot of things McCain talked about. I hate McCain-Feingold. I don't really respect him as a Republican. I think that's why we had such a turnover to the Democrats in '06 and for the presidency. And I know that you worked for both of those people, and like I said, we had to go for the lesser of two evils. But what are some things that they did that you would never do? And I mean, how do you distinguish them?
Sure. I mean, Reagan did some things I didn't agree with, quite frankly. In fact, he not to go in there, but he raised taxes. He also protected some industries. He was a free trader broadly, but occasionally he intervened during an election year and did some protectionist kind of things. But just broadly speaking, I think the Republicans, we failed to lead when we had control, and there's just no question about that. We spent money. We didn't lead as conservatives. We were thrown out of office in '06 and '08. And I think that Hillary Clinton was going to be the president of the United States. I mean, there was no question. I don't know. Barack Obama came out of nowhere, and I thought that Hillary was bad for this country. I think she probably would have been better for this country than Barack Obama has been. Unfortunately, the lurch to the left is so overwhelming and frightening. I don't think anybody imagined it. McCain, in particular, is a two-edged sword. He's a guy. He's a maverick. He takes on his own party when he thinks they're wrong. I have a respect for people that are willing to do that. He's wrong on immigration policy. He's wrong on environmental issues. I'm a big believer, as I talked about, natural resource extraction. I think it's critical to the wealth of this country. And so I think that, in terms of earmarks, he doesn't take earmarks, no pork barrel spending for his state. I think that's where all of our senators need to move in that direction. We've got to have a rational approach to that process. Jason Chaffetz has put some pretty good markers down in terms of what that should be: transparency, federal nexus. I've signed the Citizens Against Government Waste Pledge, which tries to say here's how we should appropriate funds. Bennett's attacked me on that already, and that's fine. He's attacking me on a couple of things. I think he's worried. I think it's healthy. If you hear Bennett sending out something on me, I think you should say, hey, he's a little worried about Tim Bridgewater. There are 7 candidates in this race. He's not worried about 7 candidates. He's starting to, sharpen his sword a little bit. He's probably a little nervous. But, he also didn't pander to the ethanol subsidies, which I think are killing this country. Corn ethanol subsidies. There's one guy that went into Iowa running for president and said, this is wrong, it's bad for America. He got 5% in Iowa. Everybody else panders to that. I mean, we can't afford to pander anymore in this country. And if you elect me as your senator, I'm not going to. I'm going to be focused on the budget, on the debt, on job creation by the private sector and not the government. Barack Obama thinks he created 125,000 jobs in his first 6 months of office. Governments do not create jobs. They create deficits. The private sector creates jobs and economic activity, and that's where we've got to focus our attention. It is so critical because China, you know where China is today in the world economies? They're number 2. They just passed Japan as the second largest economy in the world. They're in our rearview mirror. They want what we have today, and if we're not willing to fight to defend it and keep it, they're going to come and get it. And you think they have 1.4 billion people. They're going to be hungry for what we have. And so we have to get government out of the way, free up the private sector. The Wall Street Journal has an economic freedom index, and we are losing ground every year. So let me take a couple more questions. I just want to make sure I'm not, what time?
8:30.
8:30. Okay, let me take 2 more questions, short, and then I'll wrap up with the final. So one here.
Okay. I believe...
You're already going to vote for me now, so
I
you're trying
am,
to get...
so it's kind of you to call on me.
Well, you raised your hand.
I believe the redefinition of the Commerce Clause inappropriately has allowed government to create departments of education, EPA, energy, all of those kind of things. I'm not sure if anything can be done. It may be too late. I hope something can be done. Would you talk to me about what we might be able to do to get those kind of powers back to the states? I cheered when I heard Utah going for eminent domain to get some of our lands back.
The healthcare is going to be a good test of the court's willingness to review states' rights on healthcare. Because if you look at 33 states passed healthcare nullification, 16 have now joined to sue the federal government on the healthcare mandate. The Supreme Court has to recognize that the states have taken a major step. If you believe in the 10th Amendment at all, you've got to say these states are exercising their rights as per the 10th Amendment. There's no guarantee for health care, no mention of health care, no mandate to buy a product in the Constitution. So I'm hopeful that the Supreme Court will reach down, pull that case up quickly, and rule in our favor. Typically they'll rule narrowly, but if they'll rule in our favor, that's the beginning. When I was fighting the No Child Left Behind issue, we had no power, we had no teeth. We were the only state out there in the wilderness taking on a Republican administration. We needed 10 states to get together and start to send a message to really have effectiveness. I think the future demands that we wrestle control back on lands issues. Western states are going to come together on this eminent domain issue, I believe. You've got the labor issues. You've got the interior comes back to the lands issues as well. A lot of these issues, I don't know that you can immediately move an entire agency to the states, but you can carve out a section. There are 156 programs at the Department of Education. Let's say we take 50 of them or 30 of them first, move them away. Slowly you're going to peel down and diminish the role of those agencies. It's in the best interest of the country. And yet we have to make that argument to some Democrats, and I think the Democrats being swept into office right now will be elected on fiscal responsibility and a requirement. I'm inspired by the Cornhusker kickback. Does everybody know what the Cornhusker kickback is?
Yeah.
Okay, $100 million bribe for Senator Ben Nelson's vote on health care. What did the voters of Nebraska say?
They hate it.
Booed him.
They booed him.
Yeah.
They said, no, that's not what America's about, that's not what we're about. They made him give it back. That is unusual, but that's where America is today. Do you know we're going to turn out of office an incumbent senator with seniority of our own party? That's where Utah is today. The country is fed up and sick and tired of what's going on, and we have to put people in office that are going to take on those tough issues. I'm going to be one of them if you elect me. You will not be ashamed of the kind of senator that I will be. I will go back there and fight every day on these issues to strengthen our country. We have lost track. We think it's all about getting for ourselves. We've lost track of what is making America great, and we're losing. We have this dependency on more and more government spending, less self-reliance and personal responsibility. Let me take this last question and then wrap up, and I'll let you go.
What is your knowledge on the Constitution, and do you swear to uphold it?
I do. I swear to support it. I will not support any legislation that doesn't have a specific authorization under the Constitution attached to it. Even then, the Democrats interpret it differently, so that's not alone. It's got to be good for this country, good for this state. It has to be the morally right thing to do. The enumerated powers in the Constitution are a limiting power. You go to Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, there are 18 specific. There's more enumerated powers because some of them have 2 or 3 in them. But that is a limit on government. It's not an expansion document. And people have interpreted that as empowering government to do a lot of things. That is not at all what the founders envisioned. And so we cannot do anything other than what is specifically enumerated.